Convention tonight.
J. Danforth Quayle, in the spotlight and under fire, and still the center of controversy on the last day of George Bush's convention. This is the CBS Evening News. Dan Rather reporting again tonight from our convention headquarters at the Superdome in beautiful New Orleans. Good evening. On what was supposed to be the brightest day of his political career, George Bush finds himself under the dome, under pressure, in the eye of a storm. As Bush prepared to accept the presidential nomination tonight, new questions were being raised about the military record, or lack of one, of his running mate, Senator Dan Quayle. Quayle's family is one of the wealthiest and most influential in Indiana. The Bush campaign today quoted Quayle as saying he now remembers asking his influential parents for help getting into the state National Guard at the height of the Vietnam War. And late today, a former Indiana State National Guard general and Quayle family friend told CBS News that Quayle asked him personally for his assistance. Bush campaign spokesmen say Quayle has asked now for a further investigation to get what they call all the facts out. To explain this still rapidly developing story, we've assembled CBS News correspondents Bob Schieffer, Bill Plant, Bruce Morton, and Leslie Stahl. We begin with Bob Schieffer. Bob?
Well, Dan, it was supposed to be George Bush Day at the convention, but it's turned out to be Dan Quayle and the National Guard Day. There was no sign of it in the pictures. The campaign theme today was unity, and as the Bushes and the Quayles made their rounds, it was all smiles and flag waving. But it was the controversy over Quayle that occupied the campaign staff much of the day, as officials confirmed at mid-afternoon to Leslie Stahl.
Questions have been raised, and we are looking into those questions. It's a process that was established between the Vice President and Bob Kimmett during the selection process for the nominee has been extended to look further into the questions that have been raised about his service in the National Guard.
Quayle now remembers that he did ask his parents to help him get into the Guard, but in the Superdome to test the mics for his speech tonight, he insisted again no strings were pulled. Nor, he said, was there any indication Bush's people wanted him off the ticket.
No, none.
And you did discuss the National Guard problem, didn't you?
There's no problem to discuss.
Quayle entered the National Guard in 1969 at a time when many young men his age were being drafted for Vietnam duty. He worked on various Guard publications, and tonight a former employee of his family's newspapers and a one-time general in the Guard says he did make a call for Quayle but denied any impropriety.
Danny called.
Now, the official who made that statement was Wendell Philippi, and he says, and we quote, "Danny called me up and said he wanted to talk about National Guard enlistment. I called the Adjutant General's office and asked if he had a place for a Dan Quayle, a fine young man." Indiana's governor at the time says he knows of no one who tried to pull strings.
And I can say unequivocally, I have no recollection of anyone asking me, any member of his family, or he, or anyone else, ever making such a request to me.
The controversy began to unfold at a news conference yesterday as Quayle was asked why he hadn't gone to Vietnam. It continued as he gave rather awkward answers last night about how he ended up in the Guard.
I was very interested in getting in to the Indiana National Guard, and I'm sure that I let a number of people know that I was interested in getting into the National Guard. If phone calls were made, I can't answer that. I don't know the specifics of that.
As the discussion dominated the media, Quayle did promise more details soon.
Tune in tonight.
Whatever comes of it, the diversion can only increase the pressure on Bush to make a speech tonight that finally gives the campaign the jumpstart Republicans say it needs for the fall. In public, at least, Bush said today he is ready.
I am ready for the challenge. I am grateful to each and every one of you. Thank you, and God bless you all.
And at any rate, what was supposed to be an important night for George Bush turns out to be even more important. Dan?
Thanks, Bob. In public, Bush campaign officials are denying they have any fire on their hands, but behind the scenes they're working fast, trying to keep the flames from spreading. Correspondent Bill Plant reports on heavy-duty damage control. Bill?
Well, Dan, the questions about Quayle's military campaign or military service and the way he handled those questions knocked the Bush High Campaign Command for a loop today. This day, which was supposed to have been spent preparing for the big night, instead became a crash effort at damage control. They held meetings most of last night and today, debating whether to confront the issue in public immediately, but they decided not to do that, decided to wait until they had all the facts. So while no one on the ticket or in the campaign was talking, other Republicans tried to put the best face on things. George Bush Jr., who also served in the National Guard during the Vietnam War, told reporters the important thing to remember is, quote, that we didn't go to Canada.
I'm not going to allow someone to say, were you a draft dodger because you went into the Guard? And the answer to that question is absolutely 100% not.
The Democrats' vice presidential candidate, who also had a son in the National Guard, refused to criticize Quayle.
I told you that from the very beginning, that I was a strong supporter of the National Guard. They're a great institution.
From Michael Dukakis, though, a warning.
Our lives are open books. When you decide you're going to be a candidate for national office, you've got to assume that.
Other Democrats were less charitable.
This fellow was for the war, and he now talks about strength and patriotism and about how Vietnam was a noble cause. Well, then you don't try to get out of serving. That's the problem. It's the hypocrisy that's the problem.
Campaign officials claim this whole question was thoroughly examined by Bush's intermediary, attorney Robert Kimmitt, before Quayle was chosen. But they say that just to be certain, they're looking at it again. So while Quayle's campaign may have lost a little bit of altitude, it is apparently still flying tonight. The campaign sources tell us that there was absolutely no consideration given today to dropping him from the ticket, and that more than that, they actually think that they can pull this off and make it work. Meantime, of course, it distracts seriously from the main business here tonight, the coronation of George Bush. Dan?
Bill Plant, thanks. Understandably, the Quayle case touches a particularly sensitive nerve with many Vietnam veterans and with the families and friends of the young Americans who died in that war. Correspondent Bruce Morton reports.
Put down your books and pick up a gun. We're gonna have a whole lot of fun.
It was a different time. It was a different America. Many protested the Vietnam War. And thousands of young Americans went halfway around the world to fight in that war.
Remember to stop the bleeding.
J. Danforth Quayle instead joined the Indiana National Guard.
The National Guard, among members of our generation, was frankly known as the place to go so that you would not go die in Vietnam.
But men who did go, men with friends on Washington's Black Wall, seemed understanding of the men who did not, understanding of Senator Quayle.
I regard service in the National Guard as an honorable and indeed patriotic work, and I cannot abide an allegation that someone who joins the Guard is somehow shirking their patriotic duty.
It's the dumbest issue I've ever heard.
That does not disqualify someone from being able to serve in office.
But it is a reminder that Vietnam was different from, say, World War II, and that the differences involved money and class.
If you were affluent, if you were well off, if you were a college student, you were likely to be able to stay out of the war.
Virtually everybody in the baby boom generation remembers the turmoil and the confusion and the trouble of those times. And this is a guy who didn't go to Canada. He did go to the National Guard. He did serve his country for 6 years in the Guard.
Dan Quayle has never tried to square his going into the National Guard with his present very conservative pro-military posture.
What Quayle did, a lot of people did. If you are 60 years old, that time may have dimmed in memory. If you are 20, you know it only from books. The country was bitterly divided then about the war. Young men were split over what was honorable, what was worth dying for. Young Americans made decisions in those hard times they have had to live with ever since. Dan?
Bruce. The tape of the former Indiana State National Guard who spoke about being called to make sure that the young Dan Quayle got in has now arrived, and we want you to hear it and see it for yourself.
Danny called me up and said he wanted to talk to me about the National Guard enlistment, and he called up and I said I'd be glad to. We've recruited all the people we could get, and I was out. I've been out 6 years, and I called up the Adjutant General's office and asked him if they had a place for Dan Quayle. He was a fine young man, and they went out there, and I don't know how long it took, but eventually he signed up.
The delegates here are saying Bush must clear up the Quayle controversy now, and clear it up fast. Some of them want Quayle off the ticket before he's even officially on it. Correspondent Leslie Stahl reports about that.
Quayle was the vice presidential pick that ate the Republican convention. The question now is, will he eat the rest of the campaign?
Has there been any discussion about removing Quayle from the ticket?
Absolutely not.
None, no thought of it at all?
None at all.
Why not?
Because he's a tremendous addition to the ticket.
The idea of dumping Quayle, though, was discussed in New Orleans among the delegates. Since Bush has not formally nominated Quayle yet, and since the number 2 choice, Bob Dole, is right here in the wings.
The last time it happened was 1972. McGovern dropped Thomas Eagleton from the ticket when it was discovered that he'd had shock treatments for mental depression. The man who managed that crisis says Bush should move quickly.
My recommendation would be drop him, cut your losses, do it fast, get a good explanation from Quayle that he thinks it would be best for the ticket, best for the party, and best for George Bush if he withdraws.
It would be incredibly damaging if they did something like that. This was George Bush's first real presidential decision, so if the choice goes bad on him, it reflects on George Bush's judgment in making the choice in the first instance.
You know, as Yogi Berra said, this is deja vu all over again.
Bob Beckel ran Walter Mondale's campaign 4 years ago, a campaign that was overwhelmed by persistent questions about Geraldine Ferraro's family finances.
When you make a decision to go with somebody that nobody heard of before, except in his home state, then you run the risk of finding out stories like this that are going to hurt you. This is the last thing George Bush needed.
A new investigation is underway. In the meantime, the Bush campaign has decided to brazen this through for now, hoping that the Quayle controversy does not obscure the message of Bush's big speech tonight. Dan?
Leslie, Bruce, Bob, Bill, thank you very much. And still to come on tonight's CBS Evening News, a mystery and an opportunity following the death of Pakistan's president. We'll have an interview with opposition leader Benazir Bhutto.
Something unexpected will tear Peggy Moore away from her gardening. Pain. Her body's not as limber as it used to be, and even a simple move can slow her down. That's why her next move is to Metaprin. Metaprin has the same medicine as Motrin, and nothing's proven faster for relief of back pain or any kind of pain. It's also gentler to your stomach than aspirin. Metaprin works fast when you haven't got time for the pain.
Honey, should we take the other car?
I'd rather not. Ford Escort now offers an attractive new design, plus fuel injection and a 660 powertrain warranty. In fact, the redesigned Ford Escort may make your other car seem considerably less attractive.
Honey, aren't we ever going to take the other car?
Nope. The world's best-selling car just keeps looking better all the time.
Now get a $500 cash bonus on 88.5 Ford Escorts.
Hey, you know what? Huh? I get 10 dinosaurs.
I don't think government should be mixed up in everything we do. But we sure need government to help with the big things, to build up this country and make it strong again. We need leaders who will keep good jobs in America and have an effective trade program, who invest in our people through education and training. And we need corporations to invest in America too, for the future.
A Pentagon team left today for Pakistan to help investigate the plane crash that killed the president of Pakistan and the U.S. ambassador yesterday. Secretary of State Schultz is leaving tonight to head the U.S. delegation at the funeral for President Mohammad Zia-ul-Haq. Zia was a strong U.S. ally, a staunch opponent of the Soviet Union, a hardline Islamic ruler who held power longer than anyone in the history of his country. His death raises big questions. We have 2 reports from Pakistan, beginning with Anthony Mason.
On the streets of Karachi, Pakistan's largest city, people talk nervously about their country's future. What's next, the newspapers asked. Karachi is home to 7 million people, and its best-known politician is the woman who fought to topple General Zia's military regime, 35-year-old Benazir Bhutto.
And suddenly the nation has had, for the first time, with the swearing in of the new acting president, something actually done according to the Constitution.
At times, Bhutto's call for democracy seemed more like a call for revenge. Her father, former Prime Minister Zulfikar Ali Bhutto, was overthrown by General Zia and later executed.
Is there any satisfaction at all for you in seeing the president die such a violent death as he did?
I would have got greater satisfaction from a political victory, and that's what we always wanted.
President Zia left no obvious political heirs. The interim government is promising November elections. Benazir Bhutto's chance at real power in Pakistan may finally have arrived.
There is a sense that history is being made and that one must proceed cautiously so that no untoward step can deter Pakistan from its present route.
But as Ms. Bhutto plots a course to power, the question remains, will the military allow the new government to go ahead with free elections, knowing Benazir Bhutto could be counted the winner? Anthony Mason, CBS News, Karachi.
This evening, the remains of President Zia-ul-Haq were brought to the capital. Relatives, acquaintances, and news people surrounded his coffin as an honor guard stood at attention. The mysterious air crash that killed the Pakistani president, the American ambassador, and their aides has left Pakistan in a state of shock. The new caretaker president, Senate Chairman Ghulam Ishaq Khan, declared a state of emergency. The country is tense but quiet.
We have lost him, and this nation is a big loss to a nation, and I hope we survive.
The wreckage of the Pakistani Air Force transport plane is scattered over a large area, and the investigation into the crash has just begun. But suspicions and rumors about the cause are rampant.
There seems a very high possibility of sabotage, because Pakistan has a number of enemies, and both internal and external, who were opposing Zia, and it's a terrible incident that's taken place.
Earlier today, the body of U.S. Ambassador Arnold Raifel arrived in Islamabad. His widow and his former embassy colleagues were waiting at the airport. The American victims will be returned to the United States for burial. President Zia will be interred after an Islamic military state funeral on Saturday. Secretary of State George Shultz will attend. Many Pakistanis are hoping that in sorrow their nation will unite and remain stable. But tonight the political future of Pakistan is full of uncertainties. And this is a country with more than enough violent upheavals in its past to demonstrate that uncertainties can be dangerous. John Sheehan, CBS News, Islamabad.
Pro-Iranian terrorists in Beirut warned today that a ceasefire between Iran and Iraq will not necessarily lead to the release of any American hostages. The Islamic Jihad sent out a letter along with a photograph of Terry Anderson, the longest-held American captive. They said the hostages will not be freed until all of their demands are met. Those include the release of all Arab political prisoners and a total withdrawal of Israeli forces from Lebanon.
Flying so many aircraft, I'm not easily impressed with car performance. Then I drove the Cutlass Supreme pace car at the Indy 500. I was impressed. In USAC tests, Cutlass Supreme out-cornered the BMW 325 and braked better than the Ford Thunderbird LX. And the Cutlass Supreme costs a whole lot less. So I got 3 of them. Hey, I got 2 kids, boys.
And now Oldsmobile will buy the air conditioning for you when you buy a 1988 Cutlass Supreme by September 28th.
The making of freeze-dried Taster's Choice coffee. Search the world for the finest coffee beans. Grind them. And at the peak of freshness, brew the richest, most aromatic coffee you can brew. Then freeze it. Freeze-drying locks in the fresh brewed aroma and flavor until you release it. For a truly superior cup of coffee, the choice for taste is Taster's Choice.
Taste it.
Do you get more than you want from your high-fiber cereal, like sodium and added sugar? Get Fiber One. It has more fiber and it's low in sodium and has no added sugar. Get more of the fiber your body needs and less of the stuff it doesn't. Fiber One.
On their vacation, they had everything planned. Everything except this. So don't carry cash. Carry American Express traveler's checks. Don't leave home without them.
A window of blue today for the nation's clouded space program. In Utah, a test that was called make or break. In Florida, progress for NASA technicians on a critical repair. Bruce Hall reports.
On a remote northern Utah mountainside, Morton Thiokol pushed new space shuttle safety guidelines to the limit, test firing a deliberately flawed version of the redesigned solid rocket boosters.
2, 1, 0.
It was an attempt by beleaguered Morton Thiokol engineers to prove the new design is safe, and there will be no repeat of the Challenger disaster. Today's flaws were more serious than those on the fatal Challenger flight. O-rings were cut, allowing hot gases to reach the new joints. But this time, the booster operated as designed, and nervous shuttle director Richard Truly was relieved.
To get this last big test before the shuttle flight out of the way is something I've been looking forward to for about 2 years.
And after a quick inspection by the engineers, NASA officials were ecstatic.
The hardware and the data would tell us that this booster is ready to fly.
And there was good news at the Kennedy Space Center as engineers made progress in repairing a troublesome fuel leak. Now with all major tests completed, NASA hopes to relaunch America's manned space program the last week in September. Bruce Hall, CBS News, near Brigham City, Utah.
Rich stain and tough polyurethane protection in one. Polyshades by Minwax. Get a beautiful finish in half the time. A finish to be proud of. Polyshades by Minwax.
When constipation plus hemorrhoids twist you in knots, try Haley's MO, the laxative made with Phillips Milk of Magnesia plus mineral oil, so it lubricates for easier relief. Haley's MO, the laxative for hemorrhoid sufferers.
Red Lobster asks,
are you ready to feast?
Ready for crab legs, fried shrimp, and a lobster tail on one plate? That's the ultimate feast.
Are you ready to feast?
Ready for shrimp? 29 succulent shrimp done 4 delicious ways? Then try our great shrimp feast.
And if you're ready to feast, you're in a Red Lobster mood. We know how you love seafood.
Now, Tuesday and Wednesday only, try our shrimp and steak special, just $9.95.
Pat Van Patten and Sally Struthers.
Antique cars are still around because their owners always change the oil. Back then, you had to do it yourself. Remember? But today, there's Jiffy Lube. In 10 minutes, the J-Team changes the oil with quality Pennzoil. Here comes the Pennzoil. Replaces the filter, fill the fluids, and lubes the chassis. Want your car to last? Welcome to Jiffy Lube.
We'll take care of you like family.
Pat, meet my antique. Sally, meet mine.
Since Monday, we've been bringing you the sights and sounds of the 1988 Republican National Convention in this friendly and pretty city. But a political convention involves more than the political process. It is behind the scenes and upfront speech-making, deal-making, and party-going. So here are some shared memories of these past few days and some scenes you haven't seen.
I just tried to make a deal with George that I'd tell him where to find the best blackened redfish if he'd tell me who's going to be vice president.
I'd like to make a significant announcement. My choice for the vice presidency is Senator Dan Quayle of Indiana.
There is nothing more important in this country than freedom. And George Bush will keep the freedom and peace in this world.
God's help and the leadership of George Bush, we will redeem the American dream.
And I know where George Bush will be in 1989, right there in the White House where we all need him.
For a man we respect and a man we love, Texas cast all its votes for her favorite son and the best father in America, George Bush.
George, just one personal request. Go out there and win one for the Gipper.
If tomorrow all the things were gone, I'd work for all my life, and I had to start again, just my children and my wife. I'd thank my lucky stars to be living here today, 'cause the flag still stands for freedom, and they can't take that away. And I'm proud to be an American, where at least I know I'm free. And I won't forget the men who died, who gave that right to me. And I gladly stand up next to you and defend her still today. 'Cause there ain't no doubt I love this land. God bless the USA.
And that's tonight's CBS Evening News from the Superdome in New Orleans. Until our live final night convention coverage with Walter Cronkite, Eric Severide, Diane Sawyer, Ed Bradley, and Bob Schieffer at 8 Eastern, 7 Central Time. Dan Rather. See you soon.
Susan, can we talk?
Sure, Dad.
You notice anything different about Mom?
She's acting pretty wild for her age.
Well, I don't just mean the roller skates.
And the motor scooter. She even borrowed my new dress. Come on, Dad, what is it?
A balanced diet with the right vitamin nutrition helps people get more out of life. Some are finding Kellogg's Product 19. 100% of 12 vitamins and minerals. Feel good about yourself.
Not the, rubber dress.
Feel like 19 again.
Does car shopping confuse you? If you've shopped, and I have, you'll find the one place where the confusion ends is your Buick dealer. That's why I just bought a brand new Buick Regal. Regal is actually priced under T-Bird and Cougar. The new Regal just looks like it costs thousands more. So don't get confused. Shop where you like, but start at your Buick dealer. The car is Regal, but the price sure isn't.
Save up to $1,350 on Buick's Regal Custom Coupe.
I just got dentures, but it hasn't slowed me down.
Start to be the 45, want to hear 45, 45.
Fix-It and forget it. Fix-It helps fix loose spots for a strong hold that lasts longer than any leading cream.
True, I hear 25, want to hear 25, 25.
Use Fix-It and forget it.
Now for indigestion, gas, introducing new extra strength Malox Plus. It neutralizes more than any leading antacid and dissolves gas. Nobody does as much as new extra strength Malox Plus.
I'm Harry Smith.
And I'm Kathleen Sullivan. Tomorrow, a report on George Bush's acceptance speech.
Plus Barbara Jordan's first TV interview since her near-fatal accident tomorrow on CBS This Morning.
This is CBS.